The old house was a creature of habit. It groaned at dusk, settled with a sigh at 10, and by 11 it was usually fast asleep, dreaming in drafts and creaks. But not tonight. Tonight, the house was holding its breath, and so was I. My eyes were glued to the digital clock on my bedside table. 11:58, 2 minutes to midnight. It had started a week ago. A sound. Not a creak, not a groan, but something else. Something rhythmic. It always began at midnight, sharp. At first I dismissed it as the house settling or maybe the old water pipes, but the sound wasn't mechanical, it was organic. A soft, wet thud. Thud, thud, thud. Like a heart, but too slow, too heavy. It came from the attic directly above my bedroom. The first night, I buried my head under the pillow. The second, I put on noise-canceling headphones. By the third night, curiosity, that treacherous cat, began to claw at my resolve. I had to know what it was. I spent the days searching the attic. It was just as the real estate agent had promised, empty, dusty, and full of cobwebs. I found nothing. No old trunks, no forgotten relics, no source for any sound. Tonight was the 7th night. My heart hammered in sync with the ticking seconds on the clock. 11:59. The air grew thick, heavy with anticipation. I held my breath, listening. The house was utterly silent, a vacuum waiting to be filled. The final second stretched into an eternity. Then, the numbers flipped. 12, silence. 1 second, 2, 3. I almost let out a sigh of relief. Maybe it was over. Maybe my mind had finally cracked and was now healing itself. Thud. It was back. But this time it was different. Louder, closer. It wasn't just in the attic anymore. It was everywhere. It resonated through the floorboards, vibrated up the legs of my bed. Thud. It felt like it was inside the walls now. A slow, deliberate pulse moving through the very skeleton of the house. I scrambled out of bed, my feet hitting the cold wood floor. I had to get out. My hand was on the doorknob when the sound changed again. Scrape. A long, dragging sound from the attic, like fingernails on wood. Long, slow, deliberate. Scrape. It was moving. Something was moving. My hand froze on the doorknob. The scraping was getting closer to the attic hatch, the one right outside my bedroom door in the hallway. My mind raced. There was nothing up there. I checked. I had checked every single day. I'd even left a fine layer of flour on the floor near the hatch this morning. A foolish, desperate trick I'd seen in a movie. If anything moved, there would be prints. The scraping stopped directly above the hatch. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise. I could hear my own blood roaring in my ears. I stood there, paralyzed, my eyes locked on the faint square outline of the hatch in the dim hallway light. Then, a new sound, a soft, gentle tapping. Tap, 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 right on the hatch, from the other side. My breath hitched. It was trying to get my attention. It knew I was here. Slowly, ever so slowly, a fine white powder began to drift down from the edges of the hatch. Flour. It fell like gentle snow in the moonlight filtering through the hall window, dusting the floor in a perfect square. But there were no prints. Nothing was stepping in it. It was just falling. The tapping stopped. The thudding stopped. The scraping stopped. All was silent again. My rational mind screamed at me to run, to throw open the door and bolt into the night. But I couldn't move. My gaze was fixed on the hatch. A dark, viscous liquid began to seep through the cracks around the hatch. It wasn't water. It was too thick, too dark. It dripped onto the white flour below, creating small black craters. Drip, drip, drip. A smell followed it, coppery and sweet. The smell of old pennies and something rotting. My paralysis broke. I backed away from the door, stumbling into my room. I slammed it shut, my hands fumbling for the lock. I turned the key, the click echoing in the terrifying silence. I leaned against the door, my whole body trembling. From the other side of the door, from the hallway, came a new sound, a whisper. It was faint, like the rustling of dry leaves, but it was unmistakably a voice. It wasn't a man's voice or a woman's. It was ancient, tired. It whispered a single word, my name. I clapped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. No, this wasn't real. It was a nightmare. I had to be dreaming. The whisper came again, louder this time, right next to the door. It sounded like it was right there, its lips pressed against the wood. It said my name again, but this time it was different. It was a question, an invitation. Then, the doorknob began to turn, slowly jiggling back and forth as it fought against the lock I had just turned. I watched, horrified, as the brass knob twisted, its metallic groans the only sound in the world. It was impossible. The door was locked. A splintering sound came from the center of the door. I watched as a small crack appeared in the wood, then another and another, spreading out like a spider web. The whispering was gone, replaced by a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from the very depths of the house. The entire door shuddered, bowing inwards. The wood groaned, protesting, splintering. Whatever was on the other side wanted to get in. And the lock, the house, the laws of physics themselves were not going to stop it. The thudding started again, but it wasn't the slow, heavy beat from before. It was fast, frantic, a furious drumming that matched the panic in my own chest. It wasn't in the attic or the walls anymore. It was in the hallway. It was right outside, and it was getting closer. The door frames splintered. The lock gave way with a sickening crack of metal and wood. The door flew open, slamming against the inside wall with a force that shook the room. I stood there, staring into the empty, dark hallway. There was nothing there. The dripping from the attic had stopped. The thudding was gone. The whispering, the growling, all of it, gone. The hallway was just a hallway. The flower on the floor was still there, disturbed only by the black drops. I stood in the silence for a long time, my mind a blank slate of terror. Was it over? Had I imagined it all? Then I heard it, from under my bed, a soft, wet thud, and a whisper right behind me. "Found you."